the rest for you. So that was a major improvement from the operational side of view for them. Now, one thing that Bing Maps would only do is when we calculate the route, for example, we do that based on the data that we have acquired from Navtec and not necessarily on real-time data like day closures or something like that. So if we wanted to do a real-time navigation system or route planning system for emergency services, fire brigades, ambulances, and so on, then this would not be good enough. So we need to have something that considers where is the day closure of the road, where is the bad traffic jam, and where can I work around that. And in this case, it might make sense to integrate with the high-end GIS world, like ArcGIS, for example, which can do things like that. So here we have a route that I want to calculate from A to B. So these crosses mark that start and end point, and obviously the shortest path would have been straight up that road. But we see now there is a barricade here, so a road blockage, and if I want to go from A to B, the fastest route would actually be now bypassing it this way. So that is something that Bing Maps alone cannot do for you. But what a system that integrates with more spatial intelligence and awareness of that data in the back end can solve for you in the back end, and then you can use and leverage Bing Maps again for visualizing these results. And that makes even more sense when we think about things like this here. Here we have something that uses geoprocessing. So imagine we have a fire in a chemical factory. We know what the wind speed and direction is, and we have an elevation profile of that area around it. Now we want to find out where we need to evacuate first. What are the risk areas that we have? In what areas do we need to evacuate and when? So this is basically a very complex task in the modeling that is done now in the back end through the ArcGIS server in ESRI technology, and then we visualize that again in the Bing Maps presentation there. That now extends on all forms of mobile phones. Windows Phone is now supported with that ArcGIS API as well. But we also have, through the Esri partnership, similar integrations with ArcGIS and Bing Maps on the iPhone and on the Android. Now, from a developer perspective, there are lots of things to say, and the getting started is incredibly simple. So one of the successes of web mapping applications in general is that a web designer or a web developer can work with the spatial information relatively easy. However, when it comes to spatial intelligence, mining data, trying to foresee what is happening in the future based on spatial patterns that we have there, then it might indeed become a little bit more complex, and that is a couple of the things that we will investigate on that workshop on the 3rd of March. Now, for getting started, the website microsoft.com/maps is ideal. So there are use cases, there are customer scenarios, there's a developer corner that guides you to all the software development kits, and a little bit further down here is now a button. You need a Bing Maps key. Every developer can sign up for that for free, and then you can start right away. So that is something, getting started, testing, that is something that doesn't cost you anything and is really very simple. Interactive SDKs help you even with the getting started, so that you only need to copy and paste parts of the code. There are loads of APIs, and something that when you get a little bit more into the detail might confuse is which API do we actually use. So parts of that will be depending on the philosophy that you have around development. Silverlight is the most performing API that you can have on the web, but on the other side it requires a plugin. Plugin is something that not every customer or every developer really likes in a browser environment. So Ajax technology might be the next best thing, and in fact we have now version 7 of the Ajax technology that is based around HTML5. It will automatically detect if the browser is capable to support the performance enhancing features in HTML5, and if it does, then it leverages that, and if it doesn't, then it falls back to HTML4 CSS2 features in that. Now, all of these APIs, including the SOAP and REST web service, they access the same middle tier, the service tier that we have here with routing and geocoding. So results will be the same, and the backend data, of course, as well. But with that huge amount of APIs that are still around there, I would like to give a quick advice. 9 are out there at the moment. 2 of them will be end of life by the end of this year. So that are legacy services, old SOAP services that have been around for quite a while. The functions and features have been migrated into the Bing Maps platform, and we're going to switch these old services off. So our customers who were using these APIs, they have been informed well in advance, so it is not a surprise that I'm announcing today. They have been informed officially well in advance, and they have been given migration guides and all these kind of things, and obviously we work with them to help them migrate as well. The current investment areas where we do the most are visualized here in green. So HTML5 is something that we believe has a bright future. It doesn't need the browser plugin. And if we see what is still on the roadmap for HTML5, what is currently being worked on, WebGL for 3D performance in the browser, the geolocation object that can access GPS information, for example, or other location service on the device from a web browser application. There is a lots of more potential that we can actually see coming in HTML5. And we can keep that control small and tidy, just around 50 kilobytes, so it runs perfectly well on Android browsers and on the iPhone as well. Now, that has another interesting advantage. I mean, today, there is no way how a web application can be nearly as fancy as what you can build directly for an iPhone application with Objective-C, right? You always have to have that power of the device to get to that point. But HTML5 being able in the future to leverage more and more power of the device itself, you might be able to target multiple devices with one application. Today, you develop for the web. You probably develop for the iPhone, for the Android. You might do something for Windows 7, perhaps even for BlackBerry. 5 applications that basically do the same on different platforms. If we think about what HTML5 has of a potential, we can foresee that perhaps this will be possible to develop one application that targets all 5 platforms. We also see that we have obviously the Silverlight platform on Windows Phone 7. And the guy who is now gone, who was already philosophing about the end of Silverlight at Microsoft, Bob Muglia, you probably know he's not with us anymore, and there was a lot of unrest after that announcement that he said Microsoft is throwing everything at HTML5. That is not so. So we're still working and further developing Silverlight. It is obviously the platform for the Windows Phone 7, and we are not stopping the development there. But we're doing in the web services static requests that we have here. We have SOAP and REST, and the philosophy goes more into the REST direction than it goes into the SOAP direction. I think that is probably common sense. Now, a quick look from the developer's perspective on the SQL Server and the spatial functions in there. We have it in SQL Server 2008 and in SQL Azure. We can work with numeric data types and as well with spatial data types. Let me have a quick look at this. If we wanted to do heat maps, density maps for traffic accidents like what we see below, or just the store locator on a map, then I don't need spatial information in a spatial data type. What I basically need is just floating point numbers with latitudes and longitudes, and I can do everything with that. But if I wanted to do an operation like the risk analysis that I showed you before, or even like this, we want to find out which of these points of interest are in the vicinity of a road. So I calculate a route here from Las Vegas to San Francisco, and I want to find out where are the nearest petrol stations so that I can plan that for that long trip, or hotels, or whatever you want to find there. Now, if I basically give everything that is in that current map view, I can do that by a range query, and we will get back, in this case, 154 POIs, and they are sometimes more than 200 kilometers from the route that I calculated. I certainly wouldn't want to stop there. Now, if I use SQL Server, I can filter that down, and I say I want to have only those that I was in 1 kilometer of the route that I calculated, and we get now exactly the 15 that I was in that 1 kilometer of the route that I calculated. And the way how I do that is I calculate the route in Bing Maps, I send the geometry string to SQL Server. In SQL Server, I create now around that route, that was the blue line here, a buffer of 1 kilometer. So that is now a polygon that I've created with that buffer function in SQL Server. And then I find out all the points of interest that I was in this buffer area. So 3 steps I calculated basically in Bing Maps. I blow up the line that I have there into a polygon that represents the buffer area, and then I do a point in polygon query to find out what is there. Now, the most simple way to work with SQL Server, and that is the last thing that I'm going to show you because I already got the half red card. I think I should be finishing about now, is how you work with thematic maps and SQL Server. So this is a wizard from SQL Server reporting services. So I'm connecting now to my SQL Server database in the back end. That can as well be, of course, SQL Azure, and you might have heard that we have now SQL reporting services as a community technology preview also for SQL Azure. Now here I select a couple of tables, and in this table I have a key performance indicator that I want to visualize as well as spatial data. We pull it out of the database and I say I want to have Bing Maps in the back end. You saw that. I flicked that little checkbox here. That was all I needed to do, and Bing Maps drop in. Now I can apply some color schemas here. So in this case, it is something from red to green. Based on the key performance indicators, I will color code that. And then I run that report, store it perhaps in SharePoint, and I'm done. Then we can do already the queries from SharePoint directly, or I can export it into PDF documents, Word documents, all these kind of things through SQL reporting services. This is a relatively static service. A little bit more interactive is something that we have released on Codeplex a while ago for Silverlight, and just last night for the Ajax Control version 7. So that is really new, the Ajax connector for our Silverlight control here. It connects to SQL Server and does all sorts of things with spatial data that you have in the database, including that sort of thematic mapping that you see here. The link is ajaxmapdataconnector.codeplex.com, and then we're there. So integrating with SharePoint, piece of cake. So there are a couple of controls that are already out there. Esri is one of those. But that is a topic of another session that we will have on the 3rd of March. With that, I thank you for your time that you have spent here today. I have a last thing that Marie wants to announce here. So we are very lucky to have now somebody who can basically speak your language much better than I do, and he will be able to support Marie here in the local market.